Welcome again. Today in the second lesson, we are going to continue with learning the software development lifecycle models. Um, we are talking about the Agile model. Now, the last model that we talked about was the iterative and incremental development model. And sorry, I have some flu. Again, we say the iterative and incremental model was actually designed to overcome the weaknesses of waterfall model, and we did a contrast between the waterfall model and the iterative and incremental model. In case you missed that out, you can check it out in the previous lesson. So the agile model is also based on the iterative and incremental development approach, where in this approach we have the requirements and the solutions that actually uh, evolving through what we call a collaboration between what we call a cross-functional teams. Now, if we look at this example, for example, we have the product backlog here. Then we enter into the planning. When we plan, then we have a sprint backlog. So we have a duration of 4 to 5 weeks. Then we have the sprint. Then we have a valuable product. But notice that we have a daily scrum here that is actually um, in a rotational way. Why? Because we are actually having an iterative and incremental development approach in the agile. We have different types of agile. We have the scrum agile. The scrum agile is an approach that is actually used to design what we call a disciplined software management process. Now, this excuse me, this disciplined software management process uh, will allow what we call frequent alterations in the development project. Much as we have the development project going on, there are a number of things that we are actually keeping on changing. That is what we mean by frequent alterations. We are not limited to maybe a number of alterations. We can change or we can alter the project as many times and as frequent as need be. Okay, so it is actually a type of software development methodology um, that lies in the what we call excuse me in the what we call conceptual framework that is actually used to undertake various software engineering projects. And we normally use the Scrum Agile model uh, to really make sure that we minimize risk. We use it to make sure that we minimize risk, and we are minimizing risk by making sure that we are developing software in iterations. In other words, we can say in short time boxes. These short time boxes, we call them iterations. Now, these iterations can last between 1 week to 1 month. So we can say maybe between 1 week to 4 weeks. So we have a software that is divided into various iterations that can last for a short period of time. During the development process. So when we are talking about agile software development, we are actually talking about a group of software development methodologies, various a group of them. But all these software development methodology are based on what we call the iterative development, as I explained before. So here we have requirements and we also have the solutions. And these solutions and the requirements are evolving via what we call collaboration. And this collaboration is between the self-organizing and cross-functional teams. So we have the organizing team and we have the other teams. So the teams are that are cross-functional are actually collaborating with the self-organizing team. So the coining of this term happened in the year 2001, and in this year is when the Agile Manifesto was formulated. Yeah. So I have said this ever and ever again that it is a development approach that uses iterative development as the basis, but it is actually advocating on what we call a lighter and more people-centric viewpoint than the other traditional approaches. So it is going to incorporate the iteration, the what we call the continuous feedback, because you generate an iteration, and then that iteration is actually you get feedback from the client before you actually move to the next iteration. So there's a continuous feedback, and this continuous feedback is actually going to produce what we call the successive refining and make sure that we are actually delivering a software system that is effective. So there are various of these methodologies. So just to mention a few, we have the Scrum as I mentioned previously. Then we have the DSDM, which stands for Dynamic Systems Development Method. We also have the Kanban. These are various methodologies. Remember we said the Agile methodology is actually a group, consists of a group of methodologies that are used in an iterative manner in the designing process. So where is it used? Where is the Agile used? So one thing you need to know is that we can use the Agile methodology with any type of a project. Yeah. Any type of a project can actually be handled using the Agile methodology. But of importance, we need to notice and realize that in Agile methodology, we actually need more engagement from the customer. We need to engage the customer more. Okay. We can also use it when we have a customer that needs to have some functional requirements that are actually ready in less than, for example, 3 weeks. The customer wants to see some requirements already functioning in less than 3 weeks. Now we can actually work with Agile. The reason we say it is because in this Agile we have iterations, and each iteration takes between 1 week to a month. So if a customer has a requirements that needs to be seen actually functioning in less than 3 weeks, then the Agile will be the best method to actually follow. So we have a client that we say the first area we use it is when we can use it in any type of a project. What we need to note is that it requires more customer engagement and interaction. Number two, we can use it when a customer wants to see some functional requirement ready in less than 3 weeks. And also maybe the customer does not have requirements that are really clear enough. So in that scenario, we can also use the Agile, because Agile will enable more valuable and workable piece for the software that will actually be available early. It's going to increase what we call the customer satisfaction. So the advantages of the Agile is one, there's a decrease in time that is actually required to avail the system features, since every iteration works for a short period of time. Then we also have what we call face-to-face communication. Of course, this face-to-face communication and various inputs that we get from the customer, either the customer representatives or the customer himself, it does not allow us to work with guesswork. It does not provide any room for guesswork. That means we have clear requirements throughout the project, and we have clear workings throughout the project. Then another advantage is we have the end result that is of high quality in actually a short time possible. Yeah, high quality results in short time possible, and satisfied customer. There are higher chances of the customer being satisfied because we involve the customer face to face. We get their input, we get their feedback in each iteration. So if the customer accepted the first iteration, the second, the third, then there are higher possibilities of the customer accepting the last iteration, which will be the system now that has been is actually being released to the customer. Then we have this methodology that actually follows an adaptive approach, and is actually able to correspond to the changing requirements of the clients, because we are working with a model that is actually adaptive. It does not assume that the requirements are frozen at a time, so it enables us to actually accommodate changes, requirement changes that are actually coming from the client. So they enable us to actually. So again, we have direct communication, and we also have constant feedback from the customer, or maybe the customer and the representative. That does not leave us with any space for guesswork. The disadvantages is one, scalability. Scalability is an issue. We have the ability and the collaboration of the customer to express user needs. Yeah, at times the ability to have a collaboration with the customer might be a disadvantage, especially when the customer does not know what he actually wants. He keeps on changing things, changing requirements. That could actually lead to having a project that is going to run for a very long time than they expected. Now, documentation in this particular model is actually done at later stages. You don't have early documentation. You have documentation done at later stages, and this is a disadvantage because the documentation should actually be the ones that are guiding the software building process. Now, if we have them coming at later stages, that is a disadvantage. Yeah. Then it reduces the usability of components. Then it needs a team that is actually skilled, a team of people that have special skills. So those are the disadvantages for this model. So I want us to move to the rapid application development. This is actually an effective methodology that provides much quicker development and higher quality results than those that are actually achieved with the other development methodologies that we have spoken about. Just like the name suggests, rapid application development. So it is a methodology that ensures that a software is developed much quicker as compared with the other methodologies. Also, it is a methodology that ensures that we have higher quality software than the other methodologies. Now, this particular methodology is made in a way that uh, 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 you can easily take the top notch or the maximum advantages of the software development, and it has a main objective, and the main objective of this methodology is to make sure that we are actually accelerating, or we are making the process development process faster. We are making the development process faster. We are actually accelerating the entire software development process. It is happening at a faster rate enough than as compared to the others. That is the objective. Now, what is the goal? The goal of this is uh, it makes the goal easily achievable, because one, it makes sure that we have active user participation in the development process. So the goal of our software building process, it becomes achievable. Why? And the reason it becomes easily achievable is because we have active user participation. We have active user participation in the development process. So if we look at this example here, so we have the requirements planning. We have the requirements planning here, And with the requirements planning, here we have user design, we have construction, and we have prototype. I want you to realize that this one is actually moving in cyclic way. It's actually moving in a cyclic way, meaning when we are actually prototyping here, we can have a user design, then we implement the design. So we have user design, then we have construction. We implement the design, so we take it to the user for cross-checking and feedback. Then if the user accepts it, then we are done. Then we can move to the testing phase. If not, then we are going to iterate here. We are going to repeat this. We are going to repeat this until the user is actually satisfied with what we have come up with. Then we can move on to testing, and we can actually move to cut over. And actually move to cut over. Okay, so it is actually a software development methodology that is actually favoring the iterative development and also the rapid construction of prototypes. Instead of us having large amounts of upfront planning, here the planning of this particular software is actually developed using the rapid application development, which is actually an interleaved with writing the software itself. So we don't have we don't have pre-planning generally, and the lack of this pre-planning here, it allows the software to be written much faster, and it makes it easier to change requirements, because we did not actually plan the requirements earlier. We did not plan how actually everything is going to be put in place earlier. So it is going to allow us to write softwares faster. It is going to allow to make it easy for us to change any requirement, uh, change requirements in the course of the development. So it normally starts with the development of what we call the preliminary data models, and then we move to business process models. Here we are actually using what we call structured techniques. Then that is the first stage. So when we are working with the rapid application development, we start by having the preliminary data models and business process models. We look at what are the data, how is the data going to actually flow into our system, what are the types of data that we are going to actually use, then what are the processes that are actually going to consume our data, and what will be the outputs of each process. So we're going to actually look at them using structured techniques. Then after that, we're going to move to the next stage, where we are going to actually verify the requirements using prototyping. We are going to actually design a prototype that is actually doing or implementing the requirements that we have identified, of course using the preliminary data models and using the business processes. Then after designing the prototype, we need to actually verify that prototype, so that we make sure we have the refined data and process models. So here the stages that we actually have, the first stage, which is designing the preliminary data models and the business process models, and also the verifying of these particular models using prototyping, can actually be repeated. There are stages that are repeated iteratively. They are repeated iteratively. So we have further development results in what we call a combined business requirements and technical design statement that are going to be used for constructing a new system. Yes. Okay. So we have this term that was first used to describe a software development process. It was introduced by James Martin in 1991, and it is according to Whiten in 2003. Then it is actually a merger of various structured techniques. It is not a single technique, but we have various techniques that are actually structured, especially when we look at the data-driven information engineering with prototyping techniques to make sure that we accelerate software systems development. Now, the rapid application development has principles. It has principles, just like the other models that we looked at. We looked at the principles of of these models, and the first principle that we're going to look at here is that its key objective is to make sure that we have fast development and delivery of high quality systems at a low cost. So we are actually trying to minimize the cost of production of softwares, But to make sure that we increase the quality and the delivery time should be low, so we have a fast development. In other words, we have softwares that are actually released over a very short period of time, but these softwares are high quality, and these softwares also have resulted into a low investment cost. Now, number two, the second principle is that this particular model is attempting to reduce what we call inherent project risk. So it is reducing project risk, and this is done by making sure that we have the project divided or broken into smaller segments, and then we are making sure that we are providing more ease of change during the development process. So since we have the projects being broken into smaller segments, and each segment is being worked on, then it's easy for us to actually to change some things in each of that segment as we develop. The aim of this project is, one, to make sure we have high quality systems quickly uh, via the iterative prototyping. Okay, we have active user involvement, and we also have computerized development tools. Now we have tools that may actually include the GUI, which is graphical user interface tools, or builders. We have the computer aided software engineering, the case. We have the tools like database management systems, the DBMS. We have fourth generation programming languages. We have code generators, and we also have the object oriented techniques that are actually implemented. Now, another principle is that this particular model is actually emphasizing on making sure that we fulfill the business needs, while we have what we call technological or maybe engineering excellence. It's actually the the the, the the engineering excellence is not actually important. It is of less importance when it comes to this particular model. The only thing that we emphasize on is making sure we are fulfilling the business need. The business need should be fulfilled. Then another principle is that the project control here is going to involve prioritizing development and also defining the delivery deadlines, or what we call time boxes. So we are making sure we have project control by making sure we give priority to the development and also the delivery deadlines. So when we are supposed to actually have delivered a prototype at a particular time, that's what we are really focusing on. Now, if the project is actually going to start to sleep, then we're going to emphasize on making sure that we are reducing the requirements so that we fit the time box, because our emphasis actually on the time boxes. Okay, we do not this is what I want you to understand, if we actually have given ourselves deadlines for a particular, or a time box for a particular prototype, then we prioritize that deadline. Now, if we see that the project is actually slipping out of that time, it is going to exceed the time, then we are not going to increase the time. We are not going to, if it was supposed to take 2 weeks and now we are realizing that this might take 3 weeks, we are not going to increase it, our deadline, to 3 weeks, but we are going to reduce the requirements of the project, because our main focus, our main priority, our main uh, priority is on the deadlines or the time boxes. So we're not going to increase the deadline, we are going to actually reduce on the requirements. So the other principle is that generally, if we look at this software development approach, it includes what we call the joint application design, the JAD. And in the joint application design here, we are actually involving the users of the system intensively. We are involving them in the system design. We are involving them via what we call the consensus building, in either structured, maybe workshops, or electronically facilitated interaction. So it is a principle to make sure that we involve the system users intensively. We're going to involve them intensively, yeah, and so we can make sure we have now we can make sure we have what we call workshops with the users, or we can actually have electronically facilitated interaction, maybe via webinar meetings, etc. So we have active user involvement that is actually imperative. Then we have it iteratively produces production software as opposed to what we call a throwaway prototype. Then it produces documentation necessary to facilitate the future development and maintenance. There is documentation because we need to actually develop the application further in the future, or we need to actually maintain the application in the future. So we need to have documentation. The last but not least principle is that we have standard systems analysis and design methods that can be fitted into this particular framework. Now, the advantages of a rapid application development model is that one, it helps to reduce the risk and required efforts on the part of the software developer. Of course, reducing risk because we divide the project into smaller segments, so it is easy to change requirements. It is easy to actually notice an issue. Now, it also helps the clients to take a quick review for the project because we involve the client intensively, so the client will be able to take a quick review on the given project. Now, it encourages customer feedback. It encourages customer feedback, um, and when we have customer feedback, then it means we are actually we actually have a way to provide improvement scope for any particular software, because the customer gives feedback and we alter the software based on what the customer has responded. Then we have the disadvantage of rapid application development model. And what you can say is we have this model that is actually depending on a strong team and individual performance for clearly identifying the exact requirements of the business. So we need to have a strong team. We need to have strong individual performances. Number two, this approach will only work with systems that can be modularized, or they can be built using this methodology. Systems that can be divided into parts for for development. So the approach demands also high-skilled developers and designers. So the developers and designers in this particular approach should be of high skill, okay, and this might not be possible for all the organizations. Then we have this method is not applicable for the developer to use in small budget projects, as a cost of modeling and automated code generation is very high. So when you have a small budgeted project, again, you wouldn't consider to settle for this particular model, because remember, we have automated code generation. We also have modeling that is actually happening, and the cost of all these is very high. So if the project is actually low budgeted, then this wouldn't be an option for you to actually use. On to the joint application development, JAD. So the joint application development is actually a process that accelerates the design of information technology solutions, and it uses customer involvement and also what we call the group dynamics to accurately depict the user's view of the business need and to jointly develop a solution. So here, it is actually a development method that makes sure we are getting high quality softwares fast enough, but again, it is going to involve the user of the system, and it is going to involve it's going to look at the user's view also. That's why we call it jointly. So the programmer, the designer, the user, the stakeholders, all of those people are actually involved in the development process. So before we had the advent of JAD, we had requirements that were actually identified by interviewing the stakeholders individually. You bring a stakeholder and you interview that stakeholder uh, individually. but there was an ineffectiveness of this particular interviewing technique that was actually focusing on individual input rather than the group consensus that actually led to what we call the development of the JAD approach. Now, the JAD offers a team. So it offers a team-oriented approach to the development of information management solutions that actually emphasize consensus. Now, this is based on what we call solving the problem-solving model. So we are going to incorporate or bring together, or we facilitate workshops, and in these workshops we make sure that we emphasize on a spirit of partnership. We are not going to work with an individual. You are not going to work as a single person, but you are going to partner with other people to make sure that you have a quality software developed in the shortest time possible. So it is actually a model that involves or enables the system requirements to be documented more quickly, and also there is accuracy as if we compare it with the traditional approaches that were used. So the joint application development actually uh, combines both technological and business needs in a process that is one consistent, a process that is repeatable, and a process that is effective. So it is more prevalent in agile delivery environments in which we have software products that are actually developed and shipped in short cycles that are actually based on agreements between the commercial and technical stakeholders on what is known as you have the minimum variable product. Okay, we have the minimum variable product. So if you look at the phases of the JAD, you have the first phase, which is actually defining uh, is actually defining the objectives. That is the first phase. So define the objective of the project. Defining the objective of the project. Then we move into session preparation, where you now prepare the sessions. When are we going to have the sessions? Who is going to be in the sessions? Where? What do we need, and all that. Then we have after preparing the sessions, then you conduct the sessions. So we always begin with making sure we have clear objectives as the first step. Then we plan for sessions, or we prepare for sessions. After preparing for sessions, then we actually have the sessions. We conduct the sessions. When we have these sessions, we actually do documentation of the agreed output of that particular session is documented and is going to be used in the later session. Okay, so when you look at the JAD life cycle, let's talk about the first thing we said here. We have defining objectives. So let's talk about planning, or maybe the definition. So for you to make sure that you have completed the planning stage, then there are a number of things that you need to do. There are a number of tasks that you need to do. And the first one is to make sure that you designate the executive sponsor. Look at who is the person that is actually going to provide the funds for this project. Who is the project sponsor? Who is the main? If we need something, we need money, we need resources, to whom should we go? So designate the executive sponsor. Number two, establish the need of the system. Try to check, is there a need for us to actually construct this system, or we have an existing system that can solve this problem, or we have a system that needs some little modification, and then that system will be able to solve this particular problem. So you need to make sure that you're establishing the need of the system. So at the end of the day, you don't design something that is already existing, or you don't design something that actually does not wasn't necessary. Yeah, so check, should we design the system? Should we stop designing the system because there is another solution that is actually working, or the way we were actually working is better than coming up with a system, or there is an existing system that actually is a solution to this problem, or there is an existing system that we actually need to modify a little things, and then we have a system that actually solves the entire problem that we have. So after you have established the need of the system, then you can go ahead and select the team members for uh, the definition component. So you have this particular component, and then you say person so and so and so and so are going to make a team, and they're going to work on this particular component of the system. Then you're going to define the scope of the session. You're going to define the scope of the session. So we have the generic stages of JAD, and we do not indicate any specific methodology. So if you look at books, there are many books that are actually written about JAD, and all of these books change to actually describe the JAD stages and phases in their own way. But you realize that we have concepts that are really similar. We have concepts that are really similar. For example, we can have planning and the definition combined. Yeah, if we have a project whose scope is small, then we can actually combine both planning and definition into one phase. So when we have the deliverables from the definition stage, then we can actually complete those deliverables by conducting a JAD session with maybe high-level managers. So it is possible to have a finalization phase after planning and definition that sells the business and maybe leads to planning stage of the actual project. Now, excuse me. Let's go back to we have now identified an executive sponsor. Then we need to move to the next task. And the next task is actually establishing the need for the system. Now, I have actually briefly talked about establishing the need of the system, but there are a number of questions that you need to ask yourself. One, what are the benefits? What are the expected benefits of this system? When we design this system, what will be the benefits of this system? Are there any benefits? Are there any benefits that we will actually get by designing this system? Number two, what opportunities does this system address? What opportunities does this system address? Then what problems will it solve? Yeah, you need to ask yourself such questions. You don't create a system then realize that there is no problem it can solve. Then what are the risks involved when we have this system implemented, constructed and implemented? Are there risks that we actually tend to actually come across? Yeah, look at questions like how does it fit in with the strategic direction of the organization? Now, if we determine that we need to undertake this particular project, then we have the executive sponsor and the facilitator that is actually going to select the team members who will participate in the definition phase. You have answered those questions now. After identifying the executive sponsor, you have looked at the need of the system. You have answered those questions, and you have actually defined that we need to build this system. So the next thing is actually we have the executive sponsor, maybe the facilitator, who is now going to select the team members that are going to participate in the definition phase. Yeah, you can also select team members for the other sessions, maybe the design sessions at this particular time, or you can do that much later. Okay. So let's talk about the preparation stage. Now, for you to make sure that you have finished the preparation stage, there are a number of activities that you need to do. And the first activity is make sure you're scheduling sessions. Put dates of sessions. And each session should have an objective. What are we actually going to handle in this particular session? What are we really going to handle in this particular session? Then conduct what we call orientation and even training for the people that are going to participate in those design sessions. You need to train them. They need to know what they are really going to do in those sessions. Okay. So you need to actually train the people you're going to have in those designing sessions, the participants of those designing sessions. So schedule the sessions, then conduct orientation, train them, talk to them. If there are any resources, there are any materials that are going to be used in those sessions, then make sure you have actually looked at them you have actually looked at them in the most appropriate way. You have trained the people that are going to be part uh, of this session. Then prepare the materials. Prepare the materials that are going to be used for sessions. Prepare the room. Prepare the software aids that will actually be used. Are you going to use a projector? Make sure the projector is available. Are you going to use cardboards? Make sure they are available. Are you going to use a whiteboard? Make sure it is available and everything. Then customize the session agenda. We have planned for this session. What is the agenda of this session that we have planned? What is the agenda of this session that we have planned? Then from there you can conduct a kickoff meeting. So when you have a scope, the scope set, you have the design sessions now scheduled. You have make sure that you have a team, session team members informed or rather trained. Then now you can move on. You can move on to the other areas of focus, and that will be now designing the sessions. Designing the sessions. Now, when designing the sessions, to make sure that you have completed uh, 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 the, 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 the designing session component of the joint application development, there are a number of things that you also need to do. And the first thing is that you're going to do a review on the project scope. You're going to look at the project scope again. You're going to look at the objectives and also uh, 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 the definition document. You're going to review, you're going to make sure that all those things were properly defined, they were properly outlined in the document before moving on. Then here you're also going to identify the data. What data is going to be flowing into our systems? What are the processes that are actually going to be in the system? And basically, what are the system requirements? Then identify the system interfaces. Look at the user interface. How will it be appearing? And once you are done with that, now you develop a prototype. Then after developing a prototype, of course, you document the decisions that you have made in those sessions. You document the issues that came up in those sessions. You document any assumptions that you made in those sessions, and then you document the definition of terms. If you have new terms, when you see this term, then it means this term. Okay, now since you have come up with issues in that session, you're going to assign all those issues to someone who is going to actually resolve them. You're going to assign those issues to someone to resolve them. Okay, now the session objectives here are going to determine the techniques that are actually going to be used in the design session and what are the deliverables that are going to be created. So it is a good starting point, however, to make sure that you have reviewed the definition document that was actually prepared in the definition phase. The document is going to show the project scope, the expected benefits, and even the high-level requirements. Okay. Now you can move to finalization after that. So to make sure that you have successfully completed finalization, there are a few tasks that you need to perform. And the first one is you make sure that you complete the design documents. You have the design documents completed, then you sign off on the design documents. All of you put your signatures, making sure that this is what we came up with, and since this is what we came up with, we all agreed into it. So you put in, excuse me, you put in your signatures. Put in your signatures. Then you can go now to the project sponsor, to the executive sponsor, and make a presentation of your session to the project sponsor. You're going to demonstrate the prototype that you actually created. You're going to show the executive sponsor how that prototype works. You're going to actually get, once you've shown the prototype to the executive sponsor, then you're going to obtain his approval. Then the approval is going to determine if you guys are going to proceed with the development or you are going to go back. Yeah, so once your prototype is actually approved, then you can proceed to the next stage. Then You evaluate the JAD process. You see, how was it? We have done our first prototype. How was the process? Do we need to alter anything? Do we need to change anything? Do we actually, are we okay to continually work with it? Okay. Now, the first goal of the finalization component is actually to make sure that you have a closure on the deliverables. Now, here you're going to reach a team consensus that all necessary elements have been incorporated uh, to fit the project scope. The second goal is to make sure you are producing a high quality presentation that has the prototype demonstration also. Then the third goal is to make sure you have prepared a document that includes all of the deliverables that will be referred in the future development effort. Now, if we look at the presentation, the prototype demonstration here, you should make sure that you give them to the executive sponsor as well as to the other leaders in that particular project. Don't just give it to the executive sponsor only. Make sure you give it to the other leaders. Now, the main goal of doing this presentation, of course, is we want to get approval if we can proceed to the next stage or we need to go back. Okay. So when we look at the team members and we look at the executive sponsor also, then we have a facilitator that is going to take some time to evaluate. Just a minute. Can continue. Yeah, I was saying that we need to make sure that we have presentation and also the prototype demonstration given to the executive sponsor as well to other leaders, and the goal is we want to get approval. We want to get approval if we can proceed to the next step. So we have the team members here, we have the executive sponsor here, we have the facilitators that are going to take some time to look at how effective that JAD process was and to discuss on what ways are we going to actually use to improve the JAD process. Now, JAD approach is actually bringing together technology experts, business representatives, and even key project stakeholders into series of workshops and even sessions to make sure that we have defined requirements from the perspective of the business idea and even to the technological aspect. Okay. Okay. So in order to add what we call centralized coordination to the process, the joint application development workshops and sessions are actually managed by facilitators. And these facilitators, they have the roles to identify the objectives and even the agendas that are actually going to drive the entire session. So each session is going to have an objective, it is going to have an agenda. And of course, this identification is going to be in agreement with the other key players in the project. So let's look at the key participants in the JAD. And the key participants, we have the first one is the executive sponsor. So we said the executive sponsor is the one that caters for the project. The person that owns the system, the one that we are actually designing the system for. Yeah. So it needs to be someone who is actually in the highest or in a high ranking in the organization, someone who is actually able to make decisions and give a strategic planning and even direction in that particular organization. You don't pick the secretary in this case as your executive sponsor. Then we have the subject matter experts, and the subject matter experts are actually the business users. They are information system professionals. They are actually experts that are outside, but will be needed to make sure that we have successful workshops. Okay. The subject matter experts are actually the backbone of the meeting. They are going to drive the changes that are actually supposed to happen in that particular meeting. So we have the facilitator, or we have the session leader also. Now, the work of the facilitator is to make sure he's going to direct the traffic. He's going to make sure that the meeting is going to make sure that the members are actually sticking to the meeting agenda. Yeah, he's going to identify some issues that can be solved as part of the meeting, and those that cannot be solved at the part of the meeting, so that at the end of the meeting they can be assigned to maybe someone for follow-up and investigation and making sure that we get resolutions for those issues. Now, one thing you need to know is that the facilitator here uh, is not does not contribute any information to the meeting. It's like the speaker of the Senate. The speaker of the Senate cannot contribute into the discussion, cannot say maybe anaunga mkono or anapinga, something like that. Then you have the scribe, the modeler, the recorder, the documentation expert. Now, the scribe, the modeler, the recorder, the documentation expert, this is actually somebody whose work is to make sure that he records and even is publishing the proceedings of the meeting. And also, this person does not contribute anything into the meeting, does not contribute information to the meeting. So we also have observers, and observers, these are general members. They just come into development team and they sit behind the participants. They say nothing. They're just silent there, observing how the proceedings are done. So on to the advantages of the JAD. One, we have improved delivery time, and of course, the improved delivery time here is coming as the results of the coordinated approach of we have the professionals and we have the subject matter experts together, making sure that we have a structured and organized manner of dealing with a problem. Then we have cost reduction. Since we have increased analysis of first analysis or accelerated analysis of the requirements, then here we speed the design. We have efficient delivery ultimately that leads to cost savings for the organization. Then we get a better understanding also now, because we are interacting. We have business executives. We have business executives. We have business executives. We have the careful selection of participants of the joint application development here, that is going to ensure that we have professionals that are able to interact and even provide a better understanding of the objectives and goals relatively to their skills and knowledge. Now, uh, we also have improved quality, of course, because we have all the key decision makers and customers into the discussion. Then, of course, we have different opinions that are going to help us to identify and resolve errors in this particular development process. So as a result, then we have better quality of products that are actually going to meet the customer requirements. Then we have a wide adoption. Yeah, have a wide adoption. Now, the JAD is actually well known. It is a well-known accelerated design methodology. It is widely used, it is widely supported, it is widely popular. So it has the wide adoption. Now, the disadvantages include, just focus on looking at the challenges. There is need for effective review and deliberations of the following prior to adoption. And the first one is we're just going to look at the challenges. And the first one is when we don't have a multifaceted preparation for a JAD session, then the professionals' valuable time here can easily be wasted. If the session was not prepared well, then there will be time wasted. There will be time wasted. If we have the organizers of the JAD sessions here that did not actually start the elements of the system that is being evaluated here, then you're going to have an incorrect problem that is going to be addressed. We're going to have a session addressing a wrong problem, a session that is actually addressing a problem that is incorrect. So we can also have people that are invited to participate, but we have invited the wrong people. Why? Because we did not study the elements of the system, so we have a wrong problem inviting wrong people to participate. So at the end of the day, we can have also problem solving resources that are inadequate because we are solving the wrong problem. Again, we have the JAD workshop participants that should include employees to enable to provide input on most, if not all, of the pertinent areas of the problem. Now, this is why particular attention should be paid during participation selection. The group here should consist not only of employees from various departments who will interact with the new system, but from different hierarchies of the organization ladder. The participants may have conflicting points of view. It is important that we have different people from different areas in the organization being incorporated into the design, because they might have different views, they might have different issues, they might have just different viewpoints. Okay. Yes, the facilitator has an obligation to ensure that all participants, not only the most vocal ones, have a chance to offer their opinions, ideas, and also thoughts. Okay, so for today's lesson, we're going to stop there. In the next lesson, we're going to look at the advantages of iterative over non-iterative approaches for change management. In case of any question, you drop it in the comment section. See you in the next class.